Hi everyone, it's HKChess here, and in this video we're going to cover endgame number 12 of the book 100 endgames you must know. So in this endgame we have knight versus rook pawn, and we already talked about knight versus central pawns and knight versus knight pawns, and we saw that the knight pawns can create some kind of difficulty for the knight if the knight cannot get in front of it right away because of the fact that the mobility of the knight is reduced because of the edge of the board, and obviously with the rook pawn, the mobility of the knight is still more reduced. And in order to draw this endgame with the side with the knight, we have to know the right circuit. So the right circuit for this position, for this pawn to promote, would be h2, g4, e3, and f1. And we should get our knight to this circuit with either a check or a threat of capturing the pawn if the pawn promotes. So we shouldn't let the pawn advance actually. So in this position, of course, knight g4 works well. Anything happens, something like this, knight d3 check, and knight f1 check, and we have this circuit, and the pawn cannot promote, cannot advance either. So this is the move. There is another idea. You can play knight c4 with the idea of knight d3, but again you have to be careful of the fact that once you enter the circuit, that move that enters the circuit should either be a check or the threat of capturing the pawn once it advances one square. So for example, if you play knight c4 with the idea that okay, knight d3 enters the circuit, you have to be careful that black could play king g1, and if you now play knight d3, it's not going to work because now black can't play h2, and you cannot capture the pawn nor get in front of the pawn. So anything you do here is going to be met with h1 queen. So be careful that the move you get your knight into the circuit has to either be a check or with the threat of capturing the pawn once it advances one square. So if king g1 here, what is your move? Your move would be again going back with the idea that if once h2 you have knight f3 to fork the king and the pawn and just capture the pawn on the next move. So black cannot advance the pawn, and whatever he plays here, something like king g2, you're going to play knight g4 with the idea that again if h2 you're just going to capture. So anything black does here is going to be a draw here if you know this circuit. Okay, so what happens if you're the side with the pawn and your opponent plays this wrong with the obvious move king f3? So this is a losing move and the knight is not going to be able to control the pawn. Why? Because king g2, knight h4, and king f1, and now there is no check, and the knight cannot get in front of the pawn or control the pawn by any means. In the next two moves, h2 and h1 queen will happen, and that's just it. So you have to avoid any checks, and you have to restrict the knight so the knight cannot get in front of the pawn if your opponent doesn't play this right. So one more time, if the pawn is this pawn to promote, these four squares would be right pass. If this is a pawn, these four squares. If this is a pawn to promote, these four squares are in, and if this is a pawn to promote, these four squares is the right circuit. So one simple tip to save you a lot of time of calculation would be that you see if your knight is on e5 or d5, you can get to both these circuits, and if one of these pawns is to promote, you can either get your knight to d5 or e5. You're going to be able to stop the pawn, and you don't have to calculate too much. So if you're the white side, you gotta get your knight to d5 and e5, and if you're the black side, you're going to get your knight to d4 and e4. And this is just a trick to save you a lot of time of calculation. Probably you may be low on time, so this is a good trick that you can have in mind. And that's just it. This is endgame number 12. In the next video, we're going to cover endgame number 13. And thank you for watching. See you in the next video.